Hello and welcome to VMTV as we build towards this huge UFC card taking place on the 4th of September. As many of you will be aware, the card was supposed to take place in London and unfortunately that cannot happen. And now it will be at the UFC Apex without a crowd, which is very disappointing, but there is still tons to look forward to as it is absolutely stacked with UK fighters, all in massive matchups. Joining me on this episode is one of the top MMA journalists in the UK, Mr. Chisanga Malata. We started by talking a bit about his career, how he got into journalism, how he got writing his weekly column, the benefits that he's had with that, and some real career highlights along the way. Before we dived into September the 4th card, talking a lot about Darren Till, how big this fight is for him, talking about Derek Brunson as well, an opponent that refuses to be slept on after it looked like at a point his UFC career might be coming to an end. He's turned it right around. So we talked all about that huge main event that obviously is going to get all of the eyeballs, as well as talking about some great narratives on the rest of the card from the likes of Paul Craig and of course Lerone Murphy. Again, massive thank you to Chisanga. You can go and follow him on Twitter at Chisanga_Malata. But yeah, hope you enjoy this big preview for September the 4th, a truly great card that really shows the development of UK MMA in the last few years. Enjoy. Into that. All right. So yeah, I guess we should just start at the very start. How did you get into being a journalist?
How did I get into being a journalist? Well, I always kind of had a fascination with being the one to inform the news. Not like when I was a kid. Not saying like I was a tattletale or anything or what have you. But no, I always like to be the one to pass on information or what have you. And my journey into journalism started with my cousin, my older cousin. She must be in like her 40s now. She worked at CNN temporarily during her time in the UK. So I saw her working for arguably one of the biggest news corporations in the world. And then I thought to myself, yeah, well, this is something that I want to do. And obviously I wanted to focus on sports to begin with, because I was obsessed with football and I was obsessed with martial arts. So I thought, right, it'd be the perfect way to combine everything. And so I went to university in Edinburgh, studied journalism at Edinburgh Napier University. I graduated I think graduated 2012. And I mean, that's nearly 10 years ago and time is absolutely flying. Yeah. And so after that, I did a placement at the Daily Telegraph for, I'm trying to think, initially it was a couple of weeks and then I did like one for a month. And as I was doing that, I was just working in a restaurant part-time. And then afterwards, there was nothing to do for, like, I was just frantically applying for jobs, but what have you, just like any other newly graduated student. And it was by chance that my dad, who will speak to anybody at a party, he's that guy that goes and says hi and introduces himself, what have you. By chance, my dad, the last person that he spoke to as well, which is really, really coincidental. Last person he spoke to that night happened to be the deputy editor of the Daily Star. Right. And my dad, being the cheeky guy that he is, he's like, "Oh, my son's he wants to be a sports journalist. Can he come in for a trial shift? Can he come in just to learn the ropes from you guys and what have you?" So I came in, did a couple of days work experience there, and I was hoping, okay, yeah, maybe I'll hear back, and then they can give me some like part-time shifts or what have you, and didn't hear anything back for a couple of weeks. Right. So I sent through like a follow-up. Yeah, it was a follow-up thank you email, basically just saying thank you very much for the opportunity, and if any future opportunities arise, then please keep me apprised and keep me at the forefront of your mind. And then I got an email, must have been about 20 minutes later, and saying, yeah, there's actually some openings for night shift to work a night shift. And I did a trial then, and then I eventually got the job. But this was back when the Daily Star and the Daily Express. Well, I should go back and say, I should preface this by saying that they got into the online game very, very, very late. So right. to give you context, in October 2013, when I started, when it was nighttime and overnight, and think just putting in perspective, like, and obviously we know how big these entities are now. There were only 4 people manning the site. So this were myself and 3 other people, and this was across sport and news. So we had to do everything that what happened. And then I was doing nights for about maybe 7 to 8 months, and then eventually a position on the sports team opened up, and then that's how I got into the online part of things. And then eventually it must have been about 4 or 5 years in, and persisting with like UFC coverage and going out to events on my own accord and spending money myself. I got the UFC column, which I'm sure you've read, or I hope you've read. At one point, I received the column in the Daily Star, and that was really like my pride and joy. To be honest, I loved. Not it sounds a bit vain, but I love seeing my name every week associated with the sport that I love so much, and the fact that I was given like a full page spread each week. Okay, sometimes there were times when, say, like bigger fight weeks would take precedence, say like Anthony Joshua, or if there was a crazy story, then they need more space, I'd get it reduced. But just to have mixed martial arts in the national newspaper every single Tuesday, it was something. It was something that I'm really proud of. I probably say it's the proudest achievement of my career. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I went to X event or Y event," but for me, it was just that, and helping further the sport, and in particular, furthering the stories of fighters who don't necessarily get their names and their stories out there. So, for instance, like your Darren Stewarts, your Mark Diakises, and your Molly McCanns, and because I felt it was incumbent upon myself not to just write your stories about your John Joneses and your Conor McGregors and your Ronda Rouseys or what have you. Yes, you need to do those, but I felt that given the platform that I had, it was my responsibility to push these athletes further to the light and tell their stories, and I had a fun time doing it.
So when did the MMA stuff start to come into it? Because I'm assuming, like, how did it work with sort of getting into that coverage? Because I would imagine when you first started writing there, they weren't really that bothered about coverage.
yeah, they weren't really bothered. Yeah, they to be honest, like I had to do it in my own time to begin with. I had to sacrifice time, and as you very well know, being a UK MMA fan, sleep as well to cover this. So my journey with covering mixed martial arts for a national newspaper started in the online department for Daily Star and Daily Express. So I was doing bits and bobs here and there, and I think the first event that I went to cover for them was Silver versus Bisping at the O2 in February 2016. Yeah, well, yeah, it's February 2016, and that actually did some decent traffic in terms of numbers and stuff like that. But what really I'd probably say kickstarted my career was when Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz, because obviously it was such a seismic event, and such a huge upset. And I was one of the first people to publish the fight report. Literally, I just wrote like 2 lines to begin with, breaking, and then more to follow. And the story went crazy. And then my boss saw an avenue. His eyes literally just lit up, and he was like, "Oh my God, there's traffic to be had here, whatever." So yeah, they said, "Look, you can do this full time, and you can mix it in with football when you need to, and you mix it in with boxing when you need to." And that's how I got involved with it on the print, not print side of things, on the online side of things. And with the print side of things, I did have a predecessor as a columnist. His name is Kevin Francis, and he was semi-retired, but then he retired. I'm trying to think, full time around February or just around January 2018, around that time. And I remember vividly one day. My former editor, Howard Wheatcroft, he and I should preface this by saying that he's a very so he's from Manchester, so he's got a very thick Manc accent, and he's very blunt and to the point. And normally, if he calls for your name, then like you kind of think like you're in school. You're like, shit, what have I done? Yeah. kind of thing. And I remember he called me into his office. He just shouted my name, called me into office, and I was thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Blah 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 blah. And he'd been very impressed with all the coverage that I'd been doing, and the fact that I'd paid to go to events in New York by myself, and paid to go to a couple of events in Vegas by myself, just to further our coverage of the sport and further get my name out there. And he offered me the column, and he said, "Yeah, how do you feel about starting in March 2018?" And March 2018 was the first column that I did, and I think it was after Ngannou knocked out Cain Velasquez. So yeah, that's how I got involved in mixed martial arts reporting. It's it's kind of a tale of luck, but I'd also say persistence as well, because
Mm.
sadly in the United Kingdom, most broadcast outlets and news outlets, they don't really care about mixed martial arts unless it's Conor, unless it's Ronda, or unless it's Jonah, or unless it's Izzy now. And I'm, again, as I said before, and I know that I'm rambling and what have you. I was over the moon to have a platform, particularly in print, because it's great seeing your name up and online and what have you, but when you see the story that you've written in, like, and you can touch it physically, for me, like I'm old, so like I really value, like, I'm only 32. I'm making out as so much older, but
Yeah.
I really value just like seeing the article in print, and seeing the ink, and like almost holding the article, and sometimes the ink rubs off your hands and stuff like that. So to have that was something truly phenomenal. And I know that a lot of the fighters who I did put in the column, they were really, really grateful. They appreciated it, like similarly to the same way that I did.
Definitely. To transition to talking about this September the 4th card, which I'm still calling UFC London. It's not actually in
Yeah.
London, but it's still London. It's fine. There's just no one there.
There's no one there, yeah.
I mean, we talk about you doing the column. I don't know where you start with a card like this when it comes to getting coverage in just one column, because these UFC London cards get better every single year. Like every year, it's like, what, the talent is insane, and I don't know how it always manages to outdo itself. But yeah, there's so many narratives here to go off, like so many brilliant
Yeah, I
fights.
know,
And
it's crazy, as you say. There are like, there's just so many high level emerging mixed martial artists from the UK competing on this card. And now, I mean, I think my bosses will invariably want me to do something on Darren Till base, because obviously he's the biggest name, and what have you. But they are also receptive to other unique stories, and going off the beaten track or what have you. So then obviously we don't have like the same stuff as our competitors. But yeah, like you say, they're like UFC London over the last few years. So ever since my first card that I went to in 2016 as a reporter, it's, as you say, it's just keeps getting better and better. I think the 2018 one was that. I think that was Verdum against Volkov. I mean, that was a great fight, and there were some other great fights on that card. I remember Jimmy Manor and Jan Blachowicz went to war in their rematch in that card. But like for your I don't want to say casual fan or whatever, but for your part-time observer, it wasn't the sexiest card. But for us hardcores, it was another phenomenal card. But as you say, it keeps getting better and better. And then obviously the following year we had Till versus Masvidal. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to that card because I had to go back to Zambia, where my parents are from, for my granddad's memorial. But I was frantically trying to like get the updates on my phone, like in the middle of fucking nowhere. And then what do we have? No, then 2020 we were meant to have a super stat card as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. Leon Edwards, Tyron Woodley.
Yeah.
And then the fight that I still really want to see at welterweight happen, Nicholas Dalby against Danny Roberts. That was my fight of the night contender. I still really want to see that fight at some point. There were so many good fights on that card, and then pandemic, and I was just praying. Like I knew, like, because one of my friends was a virologist, and he was like telling me all this stuff of prior, like how easy this stuff can spread, and I was just like, but can they just hold off for like 1 week? Like, hold off for one more week. But yeah, and then obviously this card that we are meant to have as well, ridiculously stacked. But it's a shame that, and I kind of feel the UFC, they kind of jumped the gun as well with pulling out, because then only, I think it was maybe 2 weeks later, then obviously we have Freedom Day, and now you'll see Premier League stadiums are completely full. Granted, we haven't had an indoor like major arena sporting event yet, but I don't think we're going to have one for a while. Like, I mean, the closest thing I can think of is AJ against Usyk, but that's going to be outdoors to a certain extent as well. But yeah, again, I was gutted when that happened. But I mean, hopefully, Dana White in interviews with BT Sport and everything, he said that he's keen to come back to the UK for this market, and hopefully they do. But part of me thinks that they'll probably just look to get back to the regular schedule and then just come back around next February or March.
Yeah. Well, weirdly, you mentioned the Verdum Volkov card, which I always forget was even London because it feels like it sticks out, doesn't it? But then weirdly, we got the Till Liverpool card that same year.
Yes,
because Darren obviously took off, and then they were like, "We've got to do it." And then you had obviously Molly was huge with her debut. That was such a big talking point. And I remember Arnold Allen, I think, competed on that card, got a big win. So it really seemed like in that year it went from Verdum Volkov to suddenly it was just like a massive improvement.
Oh, it was huge. And like, I don't know, did you go to UFC Liverpool?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So you were there for like that atmosphere is probably one of the best atmospheres that I've ever experienced. I put that up there and like with my top three my top three, and I'd have no particular order, but I'd say UFC 217 at Madison Square Garden, 229 for Conor Khabib, and then I put UFC Liverpool 100%. It was just something special. It really wasn't. And as you said, you had Molly McCann making her debut, and like I didn't think that the crowd would be so full because obviously that was in the prelims as well, but it was packed. It was packed because they knew it was a hometown girl competing. Obviously, it didn't go her way, but then Molly used that, channeled that loss, and then she went on that 3-fight win streak, man. Against who she beat, Priscilla Cachoeira. I can't remember the two off the top of my head, man. Too many fights, like or what have you. But yeah, like then, like since then, it's just taken off. And then name-wise for each card that they do try to, name-wise the cards that they do try to bring, they're just big names over and over. Because I think that they realize that if they bring like a good headliner, if they have a good headliner here, then it's like. Well, obviously, UFC fans are going to come regardless. They'll be on to more of a winner if they do that. And I think they when they chose Masvidal for Till in 2019. I know a lot of people are like, again, I don't want to say casuals, a lot of part-time observers who don't really know too much about the sport. They were like, "Oh, he's lost his last two. Why are you putting in this? This blah blah blah. This is a walkover." But everybody who's been watching mixed martial arts for like the last 10 years knew that by no means this isn't a guaranteed win, and lo and behold that win didn't materialize. But I'm excited to see what they do next time when they come back. But I just really want I really want a pay-per-view event to happen, and I think that they should, because obviously if they're doing it in Abu Dhabi for 267, and that's going to be prime time, just like this upcoming September 4th card, I think that they should do it for the next one here. But I think obviously Till would probably have to be a champion at that point for them to pay-per-view. I don't know if you went to UFC. Yeah, what UFC was it? Was it UFC 208? Yeah, it was UFC 208 when Bisping fought Hendo.
No,
for the second time. Yeah. Oh man, that was a struggle of a card to do, because obviously like the main event started at 3:00.
Yeah. Insane.
So that week I didn't even stay in Manchester. So what I did, I just got a train from Euston. I think like maybe 9 o'clock. No, not 9 o'clock. Must have like maybe 8 o'clock or whatever, just to arrive like 10:30 or what have you. And then consumed plenty of Monster to keep myself going, and then just got the first train back home. And then I still had to file stuff online, and then I had to do my my print piece as well. And this was in the early stages of me doing the paper pieces, so I was felt like I was under so much pressure, and I was like, I need more Red Bull. Then I had Gareth A. Davis trying to speak to me when he was coming through the train carriage. I was like, I just need to work, Gareth. But hopefully, I know I've gone off on a tangent here, but hopefully we can have a pay-per-view event here soon in the future. But like I said, I think that's probably continuing on Darren or anybody else, or even Leon winning a world title.
Well, Darren, obviously, like you said, Darren is probably going to be the main narrative regardless of this card. And there's a narrative around Darren at the moment that I personally wasn't really that aware of, and it's that people are kind of not really seeing the same Darren Till anymore that they saw that excited them back with the Cowboy win those years ago, and with obviously the UFC Liverpool card and stuff. It's something that I'd not really taken into account. I don't know whether it's just because I kind of view the Gastelum fight as something that needed to happen to get over his losses. He had to play it safe. And the Whittaker fight was very close. And fighting Robert Whittaker, man, is you kind of have to fight him that way. You can't go to war with him. So I don't know how else Darren could have approached it. So I'd never really considered the narrative that Darren isn't the same fighter that he once was and that he doesn't pull the trigger anymore. I just kind of felt like it was the nature of those matchups. Is that something that you buy into at all? Like, is this fight as important for the future of Till's career in the UFC? Because it feels like he might be, I don't know, it seems to be this weird kind of area at the moment where I guess there's this thing where he's losing fans. It doesn't feel like it at all. I feel like he gains fans every couple of months. Like, so it's a weird narrative around Till.
Yeah, it's a weird narrative, but I wouldn't necessarily say that he's changed or he's gun shy. I'd say that he's just a bit more methodical because, like you said, that obviously it was UFC 244 at Madison Square Garden where he fought Kelvin Gastelum. And obviously that's on the back of two knockout losses. And I mean, by no means, I don't think he would have got cut. There's no way they would have cut him because obviously they know how valuable he is to the UK market. But as you said, he needed to get over the hump. He needed to get back into the win column against Gastelum. And I for one, thought it was a picture perfect performance. Although criminally, one of the judges gave it was a split decision. And I was like, I remember I saw Nick Pete of Fight Disciples. I know he was there for the BBC at the time. I just remember hearing him like shout, "What the fuck!" like his thick Scouse accent pierced through everything else. But yeah, with Darren, I just think he's a lot more methodical. And if people just watched Darren's fight against Cowboy and how he fought against Wonderboy and how he fought against Woodley, and then they just went to the Whittaker fight, I could see why they believe that he's a bit more gun shy. But against Robert Whittaker, you can't rush in recklessly. You have to be tactful in your approach. So I mean, there always will be that small segment of the fan base that will be like want to see the blood and guts and him just walking people down. Like, because I remember when I was sat in my living room actually when it was UFC Gdansk when after he caught Cowboy with that elbow in tight and he just walked him down, and I was just thinking that must be absolutely terrifying to be walked down by a near 200-pound man, because he was easily 200 pounds that after rehydrating. And I think a lot of people have become accustomed to seeing that. And I think also what doesn't play into Darren's favor is the Stephen Wonderboy fight, because that was another tactical chess match. But again, you can't go and rush in against Wonderboy. Like, I think the only two people have proven how you fight Wonderboy are Ty Woodley and Gilbert Burns most recently. But Gilbert Burns, everybody was booing him for the way that he fought Wonderboy last month. So no, I mean, sadly, there will be people who would be like, "Oh, well, he's not the same fighter that he is," or what have you. But I don't know if you watched his interview on MMA Fighting. I watched it the other day when I was dying doing my 10K on the treadmill, and he sounds very, very motivated for this fight. And he's talking about, he's like, each day when I leave my family and my kids at home, I'm thinking violent thoughts. And another interesting thing as well is that he said that he hasn't beaten his body up as much in camp, which is another thing people have to factor in as well, because he had a long-standing knee injury as well. So that would also affect your output and how you'd approach fights. So I mean, it's been nearly 13 months since he's been off. So hopefully all is good with him. I know he had the collarbone injury, but by all accounts, he's fine. And hopefully, well, I shouldn't say hopefully because I'm meant to be unbiased and then down the middle. But hopefully he can put on a good display against Brunson. That's what I should say.
I get what you mean. It's a difficult line to walk sometimes.
It is as well. It is as well. And I mean, like, I was almost going to say, hopefully, he picks up an easy win against Brunson, but Brunson's by no means like an easy win. I mean, especially who did he beat? So he derailed 2 hype trains recently. Yeah. So he beat Edmund Shabazian, who after I saw Shabazian knock out, who did he knock out?
Brad Tavares.
with a head kick, Madison Square Garden. I was like, this kid is fucking for real.
Yeah.
To derail him like that, and that stoppage, I think it was Herb Dean. I think that he should have been stopped the first round before.
Yeah.
That really catapulted him back into contention. And obviously he beat who did he beat?
Kevin Holland. Yeah.
Kevin Holland. I mean, yeah. Granted, it wasn't the sexiest performance or what have you, but he got the job done, and he's on a 4-fight win streak. I mean, so he's beat Holland, he's beat Shabazian, Ian Heinisch, and Elias Theodoro off the top of my head.
Yes. Yeah,
if my memory is correct. Yeah, I feel proud that I've not rattled that off.
I remember that fight happened, but I couldn't tell you when it was. So that sounds right.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's on 4-fight win streak. I mean, I think a lot of people wrote him off after he lost to Israel Adesanya. I think a lot of people wrote him off after that. Izzy, for lack of a better term, he dealt with him that night. He truly dealt with him. I remember that, again, I was there for 2:30. And I remember when Brunson tried to grab his shorts and he couldn't get him down. And then I just thought, this is done now. If they afterwards. But yeah, he's come back. And Brunson, I think he must be about 36, about that age, and he's fought like a who's who of middleweights. And so I'm trying to think. So he's fought Adesanya, additionally Jacare, Machida, Anderson Silva, who I don't know if you watched that fight, but Anderson Silva was gifted a victory that night,
massively.
And then obviously he's fought Whitaker, he's fought Uriah Hall. He's and Yoel Romero as well. I mean, he's fought quite a few people, like quite a few different generations of middleweights as well. Yeah. So, and even fought Chris Lieben back in the day. So, I mean, it seems to me that he's getting better with time. You get some fighters who are like that, who get better with time. Michael Bisping's another middleweight who got better with times, and it's by no means an easy fight for Darren. I mean, we all know. I think Brunson's going to try. Brunson will try to take him down. That's his bread and butter. Then when it comes to this fight, that's what he's going to try to do. But a lot of people sleep on this. But Darren Till's got very, very good takedown defense. Tyron Woodley, before he rocked him, couldn't take him down. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see if Darren Till's takedown defense is on point, then Brunson's going to be in for a bit of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing with Brunson is, and I never expected this change happening, but I remember him being so reckless. Like that Robert Whittaker fight is one of my favorite fights of all time because Derek Brunson just charges at him. He just walks at him the whole fight. It's insane. Like I couldn't believe it at the time that he was doing it. And he seems to have really calmed his game down. And like you said, just derailing hype trains. And then a win over Darren Till is all you need really at this point because there's a lot of middleweight contenders. Outside of Robert Whittaker, obviously.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So obviously Whittaker Adesanya 2 will happen at some point next year, and I cannot wait for that to happen. I think the UFC, what they need to do with that, they just need to bite the bullet, accept that it's not going to happen in North America, because I mean both guys are in Australasia right now, so why not just make it like the UFC could get government. Well, maybe not now because actually Australia is being ravaged by the coronavirus right now. So maybe not now, but okay. So maybe they'll have to do it in the Americas or wherever you. So just book that fight for early 2022. Kick off the year with the bang, and then we'll see where the chips lie. Because I mean, I actually think this is a number one contender fight between Brunson and Darren Till.
I agree.
Because if you're Darren Till and you've got the champion. Like every time he gives an interview, he mentions you by name and he says that, look, we're going to fight. We want to fight. And obviously Darren's got a big fan base behind him as well. And big for the UK market. Yeah, of course they could do it. And I think the ideal dream for that fight, or maybe even a title defense for Darren, would be to do it at Anfield.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and if Brunson wins, obviously that's a 5-fight win streak and beating the former welterweight world title challenger and one of highly regarded Muay Thai specialists in the entire UFC. If he gets that win, then he should fight.
Some real tension between him and Izzy as well. So that would be a fun one to see how that goes down. Yeah,
of course it'd be a rematch. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there was some real tension. Yeah, I remember it was I think it was the 25th anniversary press conference. I think that was was that in LA if memory serves me right? Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah, there was some real tension there, and during fight week as well there was. But I think, yeah, I don't think Brunson fought to the best of his ability and fought defensively as he has done subsequently in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is at least like 8 fights on this card that we could talk about for that long because there are so many narratives. I spoke to Brad Wharton of Cage Warriors yesterday. We went through the Cage Warriors guys that are fighting. Of course, brilliant commentator. So we went through Paddy and Molly, Modestus, Tom Aspinall, all these guys that have come through Cage Warriors, but outside of those guys, what's the narrative to you that really sticks out? Like when you think about this card, what's I know I'm asking you to pick one, and there's like at least
okay.
Every fight on this card has a brilliant narrative, but
okay, well, I'll probably say brilliant narrative wise. Okay. All right, you know what? I'm gonna kind of deviate from that. I'm gonna go for the for the fight that I'll say the 2 fights otherwise that I'm looking forward to most. Lerone Murphy against Charles Jourdain, because if Lerone wins that fight, then he's going to be in top 15 for 100%. And Gustafsson against Paul Craig, because that's a fight that if Paul Craig wins, it's just going to catapult him to the strats. Well, he's already in the rankings, but I probably wouldn't be surprised if they put him in the top 5 or maybe top 4 if he wins that fight, when you factor in his win streak that he would have. So I say those 2 are the fights I'm looking forward to the most, other than the Cage Warriors related alumni that you talked about.
Yeah, what's incredible about those 2 fights as well, like when I was talking to Brad, and there's a lot of similarities that we found between someone like Jack Shaw and Tom Aspinall, how, they are 1 win away from a top 15 spot realistically. And with Paul Craig and Lerone Murphy, you have these 2 narratives that like are completely different, like so different. Paul Craig looked like at one point his UFC days weren't going to last much longer, and then he's turned it around. And then Lerone Murphy, you've got this guy who a lot of UK fans didn't even know. Like with Cage Warriors, it gets this big thing of, like, I mean, Paddy is obviously a very difficult example to use because he is kind of one of a kind in a way, but these Cage Warriors debut guys get so much hype around them, and Lerone just kind of came out of nowhere with that draw in his debut and then just skyrocketed since. Like, they couldn't be further opposite stories in the UFC, and yet I think that's what's so brilliant about these UFC London cards in recent years, is like you haven't just got a great main event, because we've got Till, we've got the poster boy for English MMA, but then you've got so many interesting narratives as you go down the card, like debuts, guys on top 15 spots, which is like, to have guys competing for top 15 spots in multiple divisions, it's just a brilliant thing. Like, it's so stacked at the moment.
Yeah, and it does, and it shows you just the growth of mixed martial arts as a whole in the last 10 years, because Lerone Murphy, I believe, how old is he? He must be about 25 or 26, about that age, but he would have got into the sport studying mixed martial arts, not an individual martial art itself. So these guys that are coming up nowadays, man, like, you just see the technical prowess that they have, and in particular their wrestling defense, because for I'd probably say the last 15 years the narrative has been, Brits can't wrestle, the Brits can't wrestle. I mean, I know he's not in the UFC anymore, but have you seen Brett Jones wrestle? Yeah, I mean, we've got some good wrestlers here, and Mike Grundy as well, of course, Commonwealth Games medalist. Yeah, let's not forget Mike as well. So yeah, I think the fact that we've got guys competing who are on the cusp of top 15, it's just a testament to the growth of the sport in the UK. And going back to what you were saying about Lerone Murphy, in my eyes, Lerone Murphy is 3-0 in the UFC. Like, really,
yeah.
I mean, that draw against Zubair Tuhoff was very, very generous, very, very generous. But for my eyes, he's 3-0, and I think the matchmakers probably see it that way as well, because they wouldn't have given a stellar opponent like Charles Jourdain otherwise. So, but yeah, I'm pumped for that fight, and pumped for Paul Craig, because, as you said, that it seemed at one point his UFC career was going down the toilet, and I think that was that the Verdum Volkov card? Yeah, the last second submission of I think it was like 0.5 of a second left for Ankalaev to not tap. But Ankalaev tapped. And since then, I know he's had a couple losses in between then, or maybe a loss or two. But since then, like I think he's on is he on 3-fight win streak now? No, he's on his last 5.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to
The
double check
last loss,
that,
I believe, was to
incredible.
Alonso. Many failed, and then he fought Vinicius Moreira submission.
There was the Shogun draw.
Drew Shogun, and beats Antigulov. Submission, then beat Shogun, and then submitted Jamal Hill. So he's unbeaten in his last 5. Yeah, man, I tried. So yeah, he's unbeaten in his last 5. So I mean, as we said beforehand, like a win over Gustafsson, former 2-time title challenger, it's going to catapult him to the stratosphere. But my only concern is if Gus doesn't look as good as he has in the past, because I know who did the last fight? Was it Verdun? The last fight? I think it was a heavyweight.
Yes.
On Fight Island it was, and obviously that fight ended how it did. And then I believe it was the John Jones fight, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and he had that really big layoff as well in between that one and the Teixeira one.
Yeah.
So
I know. He lost Anthony Smith. That's
what it was. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Lost Anthony Smith. Lost John Jones. So yeah, but by that token, it means we could potentially get the best Gus we've seen in like the last 4 or 5 years, because he's on a 3-fight losing streak. And so yeah, it'll be interesting. It's all to fight for in that fight, because I think Gus is taking this fight because he knows that Paul's got some momentum behind him, and that he can really catapult himself back into the mix with one win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the fact that the man we just spoke about, Paul Craig submitting, Ankalaev, is on this card fighting Volkan Oezdemir, and I haven't heard anyone mention that. It reminds me of when Dominic Reyes fought Oezdemir. I think that was the Masvidal card, right?
Yeah, it was.
And it was like no one even mentioned it, and then you're like, that's a headliner on its own. But
it is. But I kind of feel like the light heavyweight division has been. I know he's not in it anymore, but the light heavyweight division prior to his vacation of the belt was a victim of John Jones' dominance, if you know what I mean. Because it kind of got to a point where when Anderson Silva fought, when an Anderson Silva fight was on, it wasn't a matter of if he'd win, it was when would Anderson Silva win. And it's kind of the same. It was kind of the same with John, but obviously the fights with Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes have proven that obviously Father Time's creeping up with him to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I just don't think anybody really pays attention to it that much, and that's sad, because I mean, I for one, I'll put my hands up and I'll say that I'm a Jan Blachowicz stan. I'll put my hand up and I'll say that, and like I did kind of get emotional for him, like when he beat Dominic Reyes, especially like not in that immediate instances when, like, when he's celebrating and then he realizes the magnitude of what he's done. And I mean, like, I think he was, prior to that, I might be wrong, don't quote me on this, but his record might have been like 5-5 prior to the run that he went on to go to the title. And it's just a testament to, as we were saying beforehand, fighters coming into their own later in their career, that look, the road might get rough for you at some point, or wherever. It might be early in your career, it might be middle of your career, what have you. But if you stick out and stay the course, then like success can come to you.
Definitely, man. I mean, look, I could chat to you about this card all day. But thank you so much for your time, man. You've been so generous with it. And we'll do this again for sure when there's another big card coming up.
Just hit me up in the DMs whenever we'll try to get our schedules to align. More than happy to help out, man.
Thank you for watching this kind of preview episode for September the 4th. Cannot wait. So many great fights all over the place. Again, thank you to Chisanga for his time. A great guest. Like I said at the start, you can follow him on Twitter at Chisanga_Malata, because he does some great things. Thank you for watching. Hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode of VMTV Vaults, because we'll be back with those very, very soon. And see you on the next one.